Good morning, 8th grade. This week we're going to be reviewing subjects, predicates, and the kinds of sentences. In your folders, you will notice that you have several sheets, and we want to use these sheets today as we go through the introduction to what we'll be doing this week on IXL. If you take a look at the first page, it's kinds of sentences. Kinds of sentences, declarative and interrogative. A group of words that expresses a complete thought is a sentence. In the first lesson, we want to be reviewing the difference between a declarative and an interrogative sentence, and this depends upon the punctuation that's at the end. On this page, what we need to do is take a look and see whether or not that end punctuation is a question mark or a period. If it's a question mark, it's going to be interrogative. If it is a period, it's going to be declarative. All you need to do is fill in these answers on your page as we go through. After today's video, you will have completed your lesson. Number 1, I'm going swimming today. It is a period, declarative. Number 2, is the president addressing the nation on television tonight? Question mark, interrogative. 3, my grandfather was an army sergeant, period, declarative. So all of these sentences, if they have a period, they will be declarative. If it has a question mark, we call it interrogative. Number 4 is a period. It's declarative. Number 5 is declarative. Number 6 and 7, both of these sentences have question marks. They're interrogative. Number 8, a period, declarative. Number 9 is a question mark. We call it interrogative. The next 3 sentences, 10, 11, and 12, are declarative. Number 13 and number 14 are interrogative. They have a question mark. And number 15 is a period. We call it declarative. I want to remember from the first part of today's lesson that a declarative sentence is a statement. It has a period. An interrogative sentence asks a question. Turn to the back side. It should say, kinds of sentences, exclamatory and imperative. Now on my paper, I put a note. Often depends upon the writer. Sometimes you might say, well, I don't think it's a command. I think it's an exclamation. Or you might say, I don't think it's an exclamation. I don't think it contains strong emotion or feeling. I think it's a command. So oftentimes it depends upon the writer. For our purposes today, we want to take a look at the sentences and we want to see why it might lean more toward being an imperative or declarative sentence. Look out, strong emotion. I'd call that exclamatory. A regular sentence that simply tells somebody to do something. Don't forget the party on Saturday. Command. Please mail these letters on your way to Janet's house. A request. We call that imperative. Some of you might remember from last year. When you have a sentence like this, it oftentimes has an understood subject. Who should please mail these letters? You please mail these letters. And in that case, they would usually be an imperative sentence. Now, none of these sentences down below here have any kind of punctuation. We're supposed to figure out what kind of punctuation the sentence has. Is it an exclamation mark? If so, it's exclamatory. If it's a period, then I would call it imperative. Don't stay up too late. I'd call that imperative. Why would I call that imperative? I think I would call that imperative because it's simply a command. You don't stay up too late. Now, if this is the third or fourth time that someone's telling you, then quite frankly, it might be exclamatory. But for this sentence, I think here we're going to call this imperative. Number 2, what a terrific day we had at the zoo. I'm going to say that's exclamatory. And why am I going to say that's exclamatory? Because somebody just experienced something that was pretty special. I wouldn't say you, what a terrific day we had at the zoo. It's not really a command or a request, so I'm going to call that imperative. Number 3, watch out for that low branch. Again, it depends upon the writer. You could put imperative for this. You could put exclamatory for this. You watch out for that low branch. That makes sense. If you're just telling someone to do that, that's fine. But if someone was really going to be hurt badly, well, then it might be exclamatory. Number 4, tell me more about your fishing trip. Again, the simple test, you tell me more about your fishing trip. But maybe somebody was really excited, again, depending upon the writer of the story. If you were writing a story and you put an exclamation mark behind there, it wouldn't be wrong. Just a note at this point, I'm never going to check it wrong if you put an exclamation point behind the sentence. If you really think it shows strong feeling or emotion, then go ahead, put an exclamation point behind it. Don't run in the halls. Again, that could be an imperative sentence. But what if the principal had told you this 5 times before? I think Mr. Harvey might raise his voice just a little bit, and then it might have an exclamation point. Again, you're seeing my note up above often depends upon the writer. I think you get the point. So if, like in number 11, let the baby sleep, let the baby sleep, I could say, well, that's imperative. But if your mother's told you that 3 times before, it might have a little bit stronger feeling or emotion. What I want to be remembering from this lesson is, if you are writing and you want strong feeling or emotion, use an exclamation mark. Down the road, we're going to have another lesson, and we're going to have things that we call interjections. Some of you might remember from last year, we watched a silly little video clip from the old Batman show. If we have those kind of exclamations, then we use an exclamation mark here because it does show strong feeling or emotion, okay? That's all we need to do here on this page. Again, I think we get the idea what the difference between command and request is and something that shows strong emotion. If you're writing and you think that something has strong feeling or emotion, use an exclamation mark. Let's move on to the next page. It's called sentence fragments. Now, when we review sentence fragments, you'll be remembering that we have 2 parts of the sentence. The first part of the sentence is called the subject. The second part, which contains the action, is called the predicate. If it contains both a subject and a predicate, I call it a complete sentence. My friend Joel will play in the volleyball tournament. Joel will play. My friend Joel will play in the volleyball tournament. I call this a sentence. My subject is Joel. My predicate, my verb is will play. My complete subject is everything up to the verb. My friend Joel. Everything past that point, will play in the volleyball tournament, is called the complete predicate. If it just said my friend Joel, I'd call that a sentence fragment. If it just said we'll play in the volleyball tournament, I too would call that a sentence fragment. So as we review sentences, the 4 kinds of sentences, we also want to be remembering that those sentences all need to contain a subject and a predicate. Before we go any farther, I want you to look at this sample sentence that we just went through. In the volleyball tournament. You're remembering that in the volleyball tournament is a prepositional phrase. Okay? So we don't want to be confusing the noun, the object that's in that prepositional phrase for the subject of the sentence. So really, my friend Joel will play is the base sentence. This in the volleyball tournament is just a clause that's added on. And we're going to see how helpful that is, again, to be able to identify those sentences or these prepositional phrases in the sentences as we go through. So my objective on this page is to see, does my sentence contain a subject and does it contain a predicate? If it contains both, I call it a sentence. If it does not, I call it a fragment. So we can go down and we can fill these in quickly. Sentence number 1. The survivors of the earthquake showed great courage. I'm going to call that a sentence. It has a subject, survivors, and a predicate, showed. Caused problems everywhere. I'm going to call that a fragment. And why will I call that a fragment? Caused is the predicate, it's the verb. I don't have a subject. So this sentence, survivors, is a subject. Predicate, showed. The difference between number 1 and number 2 is subject, predicate, sentence. Only a predicate, that's a fragment. Sentence number 3. Every Sunday their family went hiking. It contains both. I'm calling that a sentence. Number 4. Even the rain couldn't dampen their spirits. That's a sentence. Number 5. It's a fragment. Why is it a fragment? It begins with a predicate. Rode calmly and quietly in the back seat. There's no subject. I don't know what the sentence is talking about. I don't know if it's talking about Fred. I don't know if it's talking about the dog. This is a fragment. It only contains a predicate. Same thing for number 6. Rose in the air like a bird. Rose in the air like a bird is a fragment. It doesn't contain a subject. Take a close look at this next sentence. In this next sentence, we have of his meal untouched. You're recognizing this as a prepositional phrase. This does not contain both a subject and a predicate, and because this does not contain both a subject and a predicate, I'm going to call this a fragment. Number 8, hundreds of firefighters fought the forest fires last summer. Subject, hundreds. Prepositional phrase, of firefighters. Predicate, fought. Hundreds, fought. Number 8, sentence. Number 9, the thought escaped him. Subject, thought. Predicate, escaped. Number 9 is a sentence. Number 10, once again, we'll recognize this as two prepositional phrases. Does not contain both a subject and a predicate. I call it a fragment. Number 11, once again, notice it's really helpful to be able to identify prepositional phrases. Number 1, in the park, the second prepositional phrase, for our picnic. Because this contains no subject and predicate, I'm going to call this a fragment. My takeaway from this page is, if it's going to be a sentence, it needs to contain a subject and a predicate. If it does not contain both a subject and a predicate, I'm going to call it a fragment. 8th grade, the last thing that we want to do today is to review what we just got through talking about in lesson number 3. If I have both a subject and a predicate, I call it a sentence. If I don't, I call it a fragment. So when I divide my sentence, what do I get? My younger brother. I call that the complete subject. Likes alphabet soup for lunch. I call that the complete predicate. What's the difference between these two parts? This contains a subject. What is the subject? It's brother. This contains a predicate. likes. Brother likes. My younger brother. All the words that go along with brother. Likes alphabet soup for lunch. All of the words that go along with likes. Complete predicate, complete subject. My goal for this lesson is to be able to read a sentence, a complete sentence, and divide it into two parts. Which words make up the complete subject? What words make up the complete predicate? Once I've divided the sentence, what word is the subject and what word would be the predicate? In this example, brother is the simple subject. Likes is the simple predicate. Once again, I have two takeaways. How do I divide my sentence? How do I separate my sentence between the complete subject and the complete predicate? And then, two, after I've separated it, what is the simple subject and what is the simple predicate? So when I look at these sentences down below, I should be able to read through them and to establish the difference between the subject and the predicate. First sentence. Australia is one of the most spectacular countries in the world. What's my sentence talking about? Australia. Notice the next word is the predicate. So I'm putting a line in between Australia and is. So we can see it easier. I'm going to be highlighting the simple subject, and then we're going to see that the rest of the sentence is going to be the predicate. Sentence 2. The country is both the smallest continent and the largest island. My sentence is talking about country. Notice that the next word is the predicate. So I'm going to separate this between country and is. Now, if you want to use your highlighter and do just what I'm doing, that's fine. If you want to draw your line in between, that's okay too. Again, the takeaway is make sure that you're able to divide the sentence between the complete subject and the complete sentence, and then when you've done that, to be able to find the simple subject and the simple predicate. The small continent lies in the southern hemisphere. What's the sentence talking about? Continent. Lies. Do you notice a pattern? Most frequently, I have my subject, which is going to be followed by the predicate, unless there's a prepositional phrase. Notice in sentence number 4. The coastline of Australia is irregular. Remember, I don't want to choose. I should not choose anything inside my prepositional phrase. That's why last week we started out talking about prepositional phrases, because we want to be able to recognize them. I understand that this is a noun, but it's the object of the preposition. So I don't choose that. My simple subject is coastline. My line goes right here in between Australia and is. Coastline is irregular, okay? My line goes between Australia and is. Number 5, it, predicate measures. The line goes between it and measures. Number 10, is like number 4. The island state of Tasmania once formed. The simple is state. Predicate is formed. My line goes between once and formed. Again, I'm separated by a prepositional phrase. Number 7, the Great Barrier Reef. This, as we're going to be reviewing in the future, is called a proper noun. It contains more than one word. It's the name of a place, the Great Barrier Reef. The predicate is continue. The line goes in between reef and continues. Number 8 is like number 4, which is like number 6. Because I have my subject species, I'm separated by a prepositional phrase of coral reef. I don't want to take my prepositional phrase. My line goes between reef and compose. Compose is the predicate. My line goes between these two. This goes with my simple subject. Number 9, Australia's western regions form. The sentence is talking about regions. This is my simple subject. It goes in between that and the next word, form. Form is the simple predicate. I put my line in between regions and forms to separate the complete subject from the complete predicate. Number 10, the simple subject is climate. The climate ranges from temperate to tropical. Ranges, climate ranges. Again, I notice in this sentence it ends with 2 prepositional phrases. So really, I only have 3 words in the base sentence, okay? My line goes between climate and ranges. 11, 40% of Australia. Again, a prepositional phrase. This is really helpful that I reviewed these last week because now I'm not going to say Australia is my simple subject. This goes along with the complete subject. 40% is the simple subject. Has is the predicate. My line goes in between Australia and has. Number 12, rainfall. The average rainfall ranges from 5 to 15 inches. Rainfall ranges. The line goes in between rainfall and ranges. Again, notice the prepositional phrases. There are 2 of them that close it out. And lastly, number 13, Australia's natural lakes fill with water only after heavy rains. What is the sentence talking about? Lakes. What do lakes do? Lakes fill. The line goes in between lakes and fill. And once again, I notice that I'm ending with prepositional phrases, which takes away about half of the length of the sentence. My takeaway from this page is I need to be remembering that if I do have a complete sentence and not a fragment, I'm going to have a simple subject and a simple predicate. And I can divide my sentence into 2. Everything to the left of the predicate is called the complete subject. Everything to the right, including the simple predicate, is called the complete predicate. I hope you were following along carefully and were able to do the separation on this page and fill in those other pages, those items that we completed. Remember, when we were back talking about the kinds of sentences, we only did a couple of examples here. That's fine. You don't need to complete these unless you want to. For all practical purposes, this is complete. You don't need to do anything else with these 4 sides. Just return these when you turn in your packet at the end of the week. 8th grade, that's all we're going to do for today. You can be watching your assignments for the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll have some review activities to do concerning sentences and the subjects, predicates, complete subjects, and complete predicates. Have a great day.